Testing, testing. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Election Compliance Audit Committee meeting. We have a quorum here, I see, and so may therefore call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of interest for this meeting? Seeing none, we shall continue with the first matter on the agenda being the confirmation of the minutes from meeting number 3. Are there any changes, deletions, additions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Confirmed, thank you. Although most of what I have to say following is repetitious and can be found in the reports before the members and in the minutes of the meetings we've just approved. A summary may be useful as to where we are, at what stage we are today. At its July 17th meeting, this committee granted an application for compliance audit with respect to candidate Duda's election campaign finances. The committee further directed the city's clerk office, in consultation with the committee's independent legal counsel, to initiate a call-up against the city's standing audit order for auditing service and provide the committee with the proposals. We will deal shortly with the award of that audit and appoint an audit or deal with that recommendation as the main item of business in today's meeting. The auditor appointed by this committee will proceed to investigate the candidate's election campaign finances and will report back to this committee. The auditor's investigation will be conducted independently and will be carried out to determine whether the candidate at issue has apparently contravened the provisions of the Municipal Election Act. The auditor's report will outline any apparent contraventions of the Act by the candidate. Once the auditor's report returns to this committee, we will convene another meeting to consider the auditor's report and will decide whether to commence a legal proceeding against the candidate for any apparent contraventions. It bears repeating that neither this committee nor any auditor appointed by this committee have any power to determine whether a contravention of the Act has in fact occurred. That duty is left to the court. The parties may make submissions at this time on today's item if they wish and if they are present. If any speakers wish to make a presentation to the committee, members of the committee will have an opportunity to question them and as well as the committee staff. The committee may then decide to in either an open session to make the appointment or that it is required to deliberate in private. I trust that anyone wishing to speak today has filled out a request to speak form and has submitted it to the committee coordinator. If anyone has not filled out a request to speak and wishes to speak, please do so and fill out the form and submit it at the front table. We have no speakers. I'm advised that we have no speakers on our list at the moment. Let us begin then with the sole item on the agenda other than the affirmation or confirmation of the minutes, which and that's the appointment of the auditor. Is there anybody that wishes to speak to that item? Right. Then I would ask if committee members have any questions they wish to raise while we're in open session of our independent counsel, or comments? Mr. O'Callaghan.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I have one question, and it's a technicality, really. I'm sure it won't amount to anything, but it's not evident from the proposal that Mr. Perron is a licensed public accountant in Ontario under the Ontario Act. He is obviously a chartered accountant and is a CPA in Canada. He is a member, I think, of the Quebec order, but it's not evident that he's licensed under the Public Accountant Act in Ontario. And he is so required, I believe, in order to conduct this audit. I think Section 8833 requires that. So it's only a technicality to be verified that he is qualified to undertake this audit.
Licensed under which act?
Licensed under the Public Accounting Act 2004.
Thank you.
As set out in Section 8833(10) of the Municipal Election Act.
All right. Do you have a question of independent counsel?
Well, I'm not sure that this candidate was interviewed at all, I mean, since it was a sole submission. And so it would be a matter to be confirmed before appointment, I would suggest.
All right. Perhaps, I could ask our independent counsel, can that be done, Mr. Deschamps?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we can do that. Our intention was to meet with Mr. Perron and his team and go over their proposal before reporting back to the committee to answer any questions you may have, including the one about the technical requirement under the Act to be properly licensed in Ontario pursuant to the Public Accounting Act 2004.
Thank you.
Sir.
Madame Bergeron, any questions of staff?
Not at this moment. I would prefer to go in camera.
Vice Chair, any questions of staff at this time? Mr. Huang? No. If I may, have a couple questions arising from the proposal. It would appear that there are several irregularities in the proposal that we've received. Have you noted any irregularities, Mr. Deschamps?
There are a few formal questions that need to be asked. For instance, there are some citations of the former statute, the former Municipal Elections Act, prior to the 2016-17 amendments, which are included in the proposal. There's also a process and planning outline which would mirror more appropriately a review engagement rather than actual audit engagement, and of course it doesn't really comply necessarily with what's provided by the scope and the substance of a report under the Municipal Elections Act. And then again, these are things that we can clarify with the proponents and see if they can actually revise what their proposal is so that it meets with what's required by the Act.
I notice at one point the proposal refers to the investigation under the under the Public Investigations Act rather than the Municipal Elections Act. Is that an irregularity, an error?
Mr. Chair, could you possibly direct us to the reference?
Yeah. Well, I think it's it's I think I can't put my finger on it at the moment, but I'm sure I saw it. It may be in the oh, there we are on the page 3, I believe it is. The first, the reference to the City of Ottawa audit of election comparison expenses refers to
Oh, the Public Inquiries Act.
yeah, the Public Inquiries Act.
I get the reference, yes.
Um,
There's a
And I believe there were a number of the reference to the CPA handbook as being the guiding rules, and although they may be may come into play, the real terms of the audit presumably are under the Municipal Elections Act, not under the set out in the handbook.
If I may, in like manner, and I've seen this in their previous proposal, on page 1 of their proposal, where it says preliminary AUP, there's a direct reference to section 66 to 79 of the Municipal Elections Act, which I believe have been long repealed.
Yes.
And so the degree of attention that's been given to this proposal seems a bit dated.
That's right on, I think that's on page 2. Okay, page 1. It's also on page 2. There's a reference to review the contributions listing and determine whether all contributors are within limits per the MEA 1996, section 66. It's an incorrect MEA reference.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. What happens if the committee chooses not to go with this audit firm?
Because you've already ordered a compliance audit to take place, at some point you will have to appoint an auditor to carry it out. If it's not these proponents, then it will have to be somebody else. I would imagine that in conjunction with the city staff, we will set out another request for proposals from interested auditors and reconvene at that point once we receive their proposals. I would highlight, however, that if you want us to meet with the good people from Raymond Chabot, we can certainly do that, go over their proposal, and perhaps suggest to them that a greater degree of care would have been required if they had any other competitors on this particular request. They would likely not have made it as far as they will in this particular process.
And what is our deadline to approve this audit firm?
The Act does not set any deadline for it. However, it's always best for the committee's work to be carried out as soon as possible, because the potential sanctions at the end of the day affect or may affect the composition of council. So the sooner the better is how this should be viewed.
So the committee could, though, choose to not appoint today, ask you to meet with this firm and perhaps go out to tender again?
Yes.
One further question, Mr. Benoit. I, of course, sat on the last term of this committee and recall that the committee appointed this auditor to investigate one complaint that had come before us. Were there any difficulties encountered in agreeing upon the terms of that audit?
You're asking me to go back 4 years in time, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I can go back that far and be precise. What I can tell you is my recollection is that agreement as to the scope of the terms, the references to be relied upon, and the work to be carried out did not seem to be an issue. However, the report, which was ultimately tabled before the committee, was lacking in some respects and required some very careful and skillful questioning by members of the committee to be able to get to the bottom line of what the auditor's function is, which is to say whether or not there's an apparent contravention of the Act.
Thank you. Does the committee see any need to retire and deliberate in private on this matter?
Yeah. Yes, I think.
Okay, it seems to be the unanimous wish of the committee to begin deliberations on this matter, and we will recess for approximately 15 minutes. Thank you.